Imagine waking up in the dead of a medieval winter, the frost clinging to the wooden beams above you, your breath curling in icy spirals, and no fire to warm your fingers, no electricity to power your lights, no central heating to save you from freezing. Sounds impossible, right? Yet, for countless villagers, peasants, and even soldiers in stone keeps, this was reality. The cold didn't just bite, it could kill in a single night. But somehow people survived. How? The truth isn't in fairy tales of cosy castles or roaring hearths. Instead, it lies hidden in observation, ingenuity, and the relentless human will to endure. Here's the paradox. The harsher the winter, the smarter people became about using every scrap of resource, every quirk of architecture, and every principle of physics at their disposal, often without understanding it consciously. They had to. Failure meant frostbite, disease, or death. Survival wasn't about comfort, it was about strategy. And the methods they devised were astonishingly effective, many of which we've lost sight of today. In the next moments, we'll unravel the forgotten logic of living without modern heat, showing how medieval humans mastered the art of surviving freezing nights when fire and electricity weren't an option, and why their lessons still resonate in a world obsessed with convenience. The winters of medieval Europe were merciless, and the records of mass fatalities during particularly harsh seasons reveal a brutal truth. Survival was never guaranteed. From the frozen lowlands of England to the snow-laden Alps, people confronted biting cold, damp interiors, and primitive construction that could barely trap heat. Yet communities endured. Villages were clustered not just for social reasons, but for warmth. Houses huddled close together, walls shared, alleys narrow to shield against gusts. Windows were tiny, often shuttered, not for style but for survival, minimizing the exodus of precious heat. Peasants, soldiers, and even some nobles employed strategies so clever they seemed almost scientific. Layering walls with tapestries, stacking hay bales near sleeping quarters, and placing kitchens in ways that let residual heat drift into living areas. The medieval mindset prioritized observation over theory. People watched how heat moved, how insulation worked, how body positioning mattered, and adjusted daily life accordingly. Every architectural quirk, from ceiling height to stairwell placement, was guided by necessity. Unlike today, where we rely on instant solutions, medieval humans had to understand the slow, deliberate interplay between cold, shelter, and survival. These centuries-old techniques weren't academic. They were life-saving rituals, honed through trial, error, and the sobering knowledge that one night of miscalculation could be fatal. Here's the clever part most people never learn. Survival wasn't about heating a room. It was about managing the cold strategically. Floors, for example, were stone, cold and unforgiving, but people raised sleeping platforms to avoid conductive heat loss. Straw mattresses trapped layers of air, acting as primitive insulation, while heavy wool blankets layered warmth around the body like armor. In many homes, people slept together in shifts near residual kitchen heat, because isolation meant danger. Shared body warmth wasn't a comfort, it was survival. Walls weren't just stone. They were layered with wattle, daub, or tapestries that acted as thermal barriers, slowing the escape of heat. Kitchens and hearths were placed strategically so that rising warm air drifted into living quarters. Even the placement of doors and stairways mattered. Narrow passages slowed airflow, reducing drafts. Some homes used cleverly stacked furniture to partition space, creating smaller zones that trapped warmth efficiently. The logic wasn't written down, it was observed. People learned from frostbitten toes, from nights spent shivering on poorly constructed platforms. The cumulative effect of these methods created microclimates inside homes that allowed humans to survive sub-zero nights. Without fire or electricity, the medieval human mind became a natural engineer, designing survival into every element of daily life. This wasn't ingenuity for comfort, it was ingenuity for life itself. It's astonishing how much we can learn from these forgotten methods today. Modern survivalists, off-grid enthusiasts, and even designers focused on energy efficiency are rediscovering principles embedded in medieval practice. The idea of microclimates, of layering insulation in layers of air and fabric, is used in modern tents, emergency shelters, and winter clothing. Strategic space management, partitioning rooms, blocking drafts, directing residual heat, mirrors techniques in contemporary passive house design. Sleeping arrangements also matter. In extreme survival scenarios, the logic of shared warmth and rotational use of heated spaces can prevent hypothermia, just as it did centuries ago. Even in everyday life, looking at how medieval dwellings utilize thermal mass, narrow corridors, and heat flow can inspire ways to cut energy costs in homes without relying on expensive heating systems. The principles are simple: observation, careful planning, and efficient use of available resources. Medieval humans didn't need high-tech gadgets. They survived by understanding natural patterns and using them. In a world increasingly dependent on electricity and gas, this lost knowledge reminds us that sometimes the most resilient solutions are low-tech, sustainable, and built around the natural behaviours of heat, airflow, and human physiology. So, could you survive a medieval winter without fire or electricity? The truth is sobering. It would take awareness, adaptability, and respect for forces we often ignore today. Medieval people didn't fight the cold. They outsmarted it, layer by layer, night by night, using observation, cooperation, and resourceful ingenuity. Their survival was a daily choreography. Positioning, insulation, shared warmth, and architectural foresight combined to turn freezing nights into something bearable. We take warmth for granted, expecting instant comfort at the flick of a switch, but the medieval example reminds us that resilience is learned, not given. It is both humbling and inspiring to realize how life-saving knowledge once passed through generations quietly, rarely written, and easily forgotten. Today, these principles are more than historical curiosity. They are lessons in self-reliance, in observing natural patterns, and in making the most of what you have when technology fails. The medieval winter, merciless and indifferent, still speaks to us across centuries, challenging us to reconsider our relationship with survival, comfort and ingenuity. Next time you feel the chill creeping in, imagine how a medieval villager would respond, and perhaps let that spark an awareness of resilience in your own life. If this story made you rethink survival and human ingenuity, share it, explore it further, and consider how the past can illuminate the way we endure today.